New style Marisa.
There is a strong belief in the West that the freer the society, the freer the press. And as such, you cannot have a democracy without a free press. This core belief defines the relationship democracies have with the press and our strong and questioning trust in the corporate media. We intend to challenge this notion and suggest that the press functions merely as a mouthpiece for corporations, making it the loudest and most powerful voice in the land. This allows them to control the public discourse and drive consumption. This does not promote democracy. Rather, it ensures that we consent to a structure that is designed to maintain the status quo of unequal class relations. We will compare media in democratic countries like Canada and Japan and non-democratic countries like China. 16th century philosopher Francis Bacon, who was the first Viscount of St. Alban, said that knowledge is power. So he who controls the production and dissemination of information would influence what you think, believe, and do. The ruling elite have devised ways to do this in both democratic and undemocratic countries, with the simple goal of staying in power. This is achieved simply by controlling the message, the imagery, and the symbolism when it comes to the Western countries. For example, the Western countries are being painted as being successful with symbols of nice cars, fancy homes, and very, very well-dressed people, while showing other economic systems as being poor, malnourished, and impoverished. This it reinforces the idea that it's a superior system.
Africa by night. Débarqué à l'aéroport Grand Yoff à Dakar.
The press in Canada, like in most Western countries, have some things in common. They are independent and privately owned, so in theory, they should be free of government influence. They're highly centralized in ownership and production, giving it a strong independent base. They're free to compete and recruit the best talents. They keep the government accountable on behalf of its citizens. They act to promote national pride and unity. And they're highly trusted because they're independent or seen to be independent of the central government. The problem with this notion is that most of them have ended up becoming oligarchies, meaning they become highly centralized, which eliminates competition and the variety of ideas, thus allowing a few elites to set the agenda and the public discourse. They've also become highly partisan. Instead of the media acting as a voice to challenge the government and make sure it does what it's supposed to do and keep it accountable, it's acting as a mouthpiece of the media as long as it agrees with its principles and ideologies, thus losing its independence and core values. Now, the main difference between the Western countries and the communist countries is that the West has managed quite effectively to control the message and portray a different image than what is actually going on. They do this mainly by promising class mobility and the prospect of wealth. If you believe, if you work hard enough, you can rise up the class structure. But the honest truth is that the majority of people never leave the class they were born in.
J.R. Sean Kingston.
You're way too beautiful, girl. That's why it'll never work. You have me suicidal when you say it's all.
According to Dr. Michael Strangelove, professor of media communications in Ottawa University, democracy is a system that ensures the rich and the privileged stay that way, and they use the media as a tool to achieve that goal. We can see this by the images they portray of other systems. For example, we all know Africa as being a society of poor, underprivileged, and war. We've seen all the pictures of the starving kids with flies all over them. but nobody sees the positive images of Africa, the beauty, the community, the hardworking aspects of that community. Yet, when you picture countries like Canada and the Western media, they're portrayed as being beautiful, peaceful, developed. This all encourages us and keeps us complacent, so we do not rise up and challenge the status quo. The idea of control is not limited to Western countries or democracies like Japan, which is an empire with democratic institutions, but also to communist China with its growing economic might. The difference isn't just the way they do it. China is doing with clear brute force, while countries in the Western are doing it more delicately and subtly.
Japan is a small country. It has only one language. The literacy level is very high. Media is independent. However, news is very similar in detail. But there is no official propaganda.
According to Professor Tessa Morris Suzuki, even though the Japanese media is free and independent, there is an organization called the Journalists Club that is used as a platform when the media needs to interview the government officials or the government needs to publicize news to the outside world. Only reporters of major Japanese media have qualifications to enter the club. Media from overseas are not qualified. Thus, the reports are monopolized by the local media. Through years of struggling, some foreign media can enter the club, but only as observers, with the rights to attend the press conferences, but they cannot ask any questions. The reason for this is very simple. It's all about controlling the image, the information, and the perception of the public.
China has 1.3 billion people. The media is all government controlled. Information and news is controlled. Though media has changed recently, and it is no longer just a part mouthpiece. It is not independent. China faces the challenges as media is changing. Technology has empowered and weakened the state. It is becoming hard to control the message and the information. Internet is promoting choice and competition.
With these changes in China, it's becoming undeniably difficult for the government to keep controlling the information. This is giving people a lot of freedom and a lot of choices that they never dreamed about. These observations were made by Todd Hazelbath, who was a former director of CIA in Asia. He saw that the Chinese media, though it's become increasingly autonomous and diverse, it still has limits that it has to work with. This is mainly driven by the smaller independent newspapers that keep on producing stories on the internet, challenging the official government line. Before you criticize other economic systems, just remember what Noam Chomsky said. Corporate media is a profit-driven institution that tends to serve and further the agendas and interests of the dominant elite groups in the society. It has helped challenge existing norms in countries both democratic and non-democratic by creating a forum for free exchange of ideas that do not go through the official media system or the gateway keepers that censor the information. This is proving to be a threat to both the democratic and non-democratic country, with both trying to find ways to control the internet and curb its threat. In the West, it is done through legislation in the name of national security, and in communist country, it's done through laws and censorship.
All the new dance out of Kingston, Jamaica.